So, um, so good day, good afternoon, good day, everyone. So today we'll be just talking about Kubeflow pipelines, how to set it up on our local. Like I know you guys have been exposed to material and we don't really know how to get it
Um,
to start.
Good day,
Um,
good day, everyone.
so
So today we're
somebody,
just talking about free flow pipelines, how to set it up on our.
Amoy, can you? Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. All right. So let me continue. So today we'll be setting up Kubeflow pipeline on our local, right? So I'm going to just show you guys how to do that so you can practice the material that you are you are seeing in the course material. Like you can practice it and see it work. So to get started, I will right. So I have my virtual machine started up, and you can always do this on your local too. But the caveat or disclaimer I'll give you is that you should most likely have enough data to download the images, right? So keep if you let me start from the beginning. So what's actually Kubeflow pipeline, right? It's like a user interface or it's a function actually, right? Where you can, in the whole machine learning workflow, there is data ingestion, there is data preparation, that is feature engineering. Um, there's all of that in it, the feature engineering. Then after that, the training of models. And if you've not had your model trained, you also have to train a lot of models, right? And after that, there's now the saving of the prediction, right? There's the post-processing of the model prediction to the right format. Then there's now the monitoring. So there's a whole lot going on in the machine learning workflow. And what Kubeflow does for you is that it gives you like a user interface where you can manage your experiments and jobs. It gives you like an SDK, Python SDK, where you can just write Python script and put some decorators on it, and you have your pipeline and the components set up, right? So for today, I'll just be installing it, right? I know it's a whole hassle installing this on your local, right? So that's what I'm going to show you. So if you come to kubeflow.com and go to documentations, there is the local deployment side. So what it requires is that you use kind, but also I'm using Minikube, right? You can also use Minikube to set it up. Let me see if my Minikube is up and running. So it's stopped, so I can do Minikube start, right? So I am using Minikube for this session. So so what we need to do is set up our cluster with Minikube, kind, or anyone. So I'm sure that you have set up your kind cluster, or Minikube cluster on your local. So that this is all about the cluster. So you don't really need to bother yourself about all this. Right. So what's next is installation of the Kubeflow pipeline. So what it's going to give you is going to give you a UI, it's going to give you all the pods you need to set up Kubeflow pipeline, right? So to do that, you just need to come here and copy this command, right? I hopefully this can be you can get to this page at first. So you could just come here, set Kubeflow um installation, install, right? Yeah, install kilo. It's a Kubeflow pipeline install. So yeah, you be taken to this side and you most likely can go to where I went to. So I'm just showing you how to get to this page from your end. So if your Minikube cluster is up and running and you have kubectl um, up and running, so you see that my Minikube is up and running. So what I can just do, just copy all of this here, right? You can leave the comments. So you just need to copy all of this, right? When you copy all of that, um, it's going to install some CRDs. Okay, let me do it step by step. Let me copy this. So if I don't know, if you've gone through your material, you should have heard of CRDs, right? Custom resource definitions. So for Kubeflow pipeline, there are some custom resources, not just deployment and service and config map, right? So when you just say custom resource, it means that they keep owners of Kubeflow, right? They wrote to their own config resource, like their own resource, custom resource, right? And so for you to get access to those resource, right, you have to set it up, you have to download it, right? So to download, you just need to run kubectl apply all of this. This is a manifest file with all of the CRDs that you need. So if you just come here and run that, you're going to see that it's going to, I've already run all of this before, so it's not going to take much time for me. So you see that I created some CR, custom resource, API extension, workflow tags, cron workflow. So these are all like how you have deployments now. So this is their own custom resource, something called Kubeflow pipeline cage deployer, Kubeflow pipeline cage deployer, cluster robot, all of this, right? So once you have all of that, you can now, this is where the issue most likely is, right? So caveat is that this, right, this is going to require some like how many gig? This virtual machine is 4 gig CPU, 8 gig RAM. So right, 4 gig, 8 gig RAM, and yeah, 30 gig of RAM space, right? So it's not really that much, and you can run it on your local, but when you are done, you should most likely shut it down because it's going to most likely slow down your PC. So I can now apply this. And so you see it's going to create some kind of pods, service, deployment, right? You see deployment is creating some PVCs. You're going to create some services, config maps. So this is just all of the configurations you need to have Kubeflow pipelines running, right? And then in your material, you most likely saw that they in your material, they set up Kubeflow altogether, right? They set up Kubeflow altogether, and that's also possible to do that on your local, right? But most of the time, setting up Kubeflow altogether is an overkill. There are too much resources in Kubeflow, and you don't really want to use all of them at the same time. So that's why you can set up Kubeflow pipelines on your own, just standalone, right? And you can be able to use that, right? So what you can do now is, did I clear that? So you can also run kubectl get pods, and the namespace is Kubeflow. I hope we all know what the namespace is right now. Okay. Okay, so I think that's a chat. Let's see. All right. Okay, so we see that all of the pods are running, right? We see all of the pods running. And I need to also say that um, if you're running this on your local, you most likely need to have a lot of data, not a lot of data, but some amount of data, because I remember searching for one. This is Google custom registry, right? So what is a container registry? It's almost like GitHub for code. So but this is GitHub for images, right? For Docker images. So what Google does is that all the images you need, they are stored in their own container registry. So you can just do pull of each of those images. So let me look for this ML pipeline visualization server. Right, ML pipeline visualization server pipeline. Where's that? Supposed to be here. All right, no, I'll just describe that and go to it, right? So I can just look at it using the describe. So I'm going to describe this board, right? And it's in the namespace Kubeflow. So it's most likely pulled it from my local because I've already done this before. I wish I can see. Okay, yeah, see it here. This is where the image was gotten from. So if I copy this and paste it here, I'll get access to the image location, just like how Docker Hub is. So this Google Zone, like I said, there are a lot of Docker Hubs, privately owned Docker Hubs, right? So now see the size of this image. This was 1.5 gig, right? And that was just for one image. And there were like how many images were there to be pulled? There were like this amount of images. So something like MySQL is so little. MySQL was 58 MB. But I looked at this. This was taking some time to load. So I looked at the size. And so it was almost 1.5 gig. So yeah, you expect that if you're running this, you should be ready for the bandwidth and everything that'll go with it, right? So that's just a disclaimer I'm giving you. So now that I have Kubeflow pipeline set up, right, I need to port forward. And I'm sure I've shown you what port forwarding is, right? So what's port forward? Okay, let me just look at all the services to kubectl get service in a Kubeflow namespace. So we can see all the services that are in the Kubeflow namespace. I'm sorry, I'm coming. All right, so you can see all the services that are in the Kubeflow namespace, and the one we're going to port forward is for the ML pipeline. We can access the user interface through our browser, right? So if we can't, you most likely cannot access it. So let's port forward that. So let me recap the code. Port forward is like a command on a parameter in kubectl, right? So it helps you connect the ports of your local to a port of a particular pod deployment or service, right? You can also connect it to a service, sorry, to a pod. So this -n, like I said, is a namespace, right? There are a lot of namespaces in your Kubernetes cluster, and namespaces are most likely separations, right? Separations of applications or separations of maybe even a whole branch or department, right? So different applications might be running on different clusters, right? So there will not be this interaction that will mess up your cluster, right? So that's why it is needed for a namespace. And so I'm post forwarding this service ML pipeline that is running on port 80, right? The service is running on port 80 to port 8080 on my local, right? So like I said in the start, this is not my PC. This is a virtual machine on Azure that I'm using to run this, right? So I can destroy this when I want to. So if I port forward this, you see that it's connected, right? And so I can't access it immediately, right? Let me just go to that port, to that URL. So if I go to the URL, there's nothing that is going to work for me. It's not connected, right? So the way to go about that, instead of going to your network and doing some configurations that you don't want to, you can always SSH to your using VS Code, right? I don't know. Yeah, most likely you have this extension, right? So there's an extension in VS Code that helps you do SSH from VS Code. So you are all data engineers here and soon to be ML engineers, and so you really need to know most of all of this, right? These are tools that will help you in the journey. Right? So I'm happy to expose you to it. So now that you have, I've set up the SSH virtual machine, I can SSH to it through VS Code, right? And if I do that, it's most likely connecting. It's going to open a new window for me. So let me just wait for it to be done. So it's still connecting. And you see that it's connected, right? So since it's connected, I can do something called port forwarding through VS Code. So you can port forward through VS Code by going to this antenna here and clicking port forward. Since you're connected to the virtual machine, you just need to put in the port you want um, to connect, right? To forward it to. So we see that now it's connected, and the process running here is the give the port forward, right? So if I go here now and I refresh, let it refresh for me. Yeah, we can see that we have access to the Kubeflow pipelines, right? And we see some code already here. So if you've looked at your material, right, let me go through the source code here. right? So the first thing is that there's a pipeline, there's a workflow, right? And in that workflow, this is a dummy workflow, right? This is this is just a dummy one. There's no data, there's no training, it's just dummy, right? So you see that you see this decorator here at component. This is a decorator. And I'm sure if you work with Fast API, you know what you've seen this kind of syntax before at app dots. If you have used Fast API, right, to maybe expose an endpoint, a backend application you've created, you should know what a decorator is. And if you've done Python, you know what a decorator is. Right? So it wraps up around the function and does some hidden things that is inside this component function itself. So what this is that decorating this function as a this function as a component, right? So what is this component doing? It's going to take in a message. It's going to do some you're going to create a data set, right? It's going to create a data set. It's just like a preprocessing, let me say a dummy preprocessing step, right? It's taking an input, going to do some whatever to it, and it's going to create an output data set, right? And so you now send it to train. Okay, it's not sending it to train. These are not components. Train, right? It's going to take in your data set and train a model, right? But like I said, this is dummy. This is not doing anything yet. This is just example code, right? Just to show you how it goes. So it's creating another component, train. And it's going to do something, it's going to print out an accuracy, whatever. So now the main thing is you're combining all of that to form a pipeline. And that's what this pipeline is doing here. So this is the data passing pipeline. So this is where you pass in your preprocess function and your train function, right? With all the parameters. So this is where the whole pipeline is, right? Then you now compile it. You compile it with your, I hope we know what this is, right? On under double underscore name, double underscore name, right? So this is where the main function is. This is what is actually going to run when you run this script, right? I hope I'm talking to like Python gurus here. I know I am. So if you want to run this, you could just go to pipelines, click one of these example pipelines, right? Create this now. We see that this is going to give you a like a DAG. This is like a direct acyclic graph, right? But this is visual. Remember the code we looked at, then this is its visualization. Yeah, preprocess, output some data sets, right? Then send it to train and send your model, right? Like I said, this is very, very dummy. It's not training anything. It's just for showing purposes, right? So now we come here, create an experiment, name the experiments, text experiments, right? And we click next, only for a description. So when we click next, it's going to carry us to run, where we can, how many times you want it to run, recurring, one-off, blah, blah, blah. So this is where you now specify the parameters to your, remember there was a parameter to the preprocess step, right? That was the message string. But most likely in real world, it's most likely a data set or something, right? So this is going to start the run for us. So if we click start, then it's going to send us our DAG. It's now going to show us some visualizations. You see that it's pending execution. And if you come here and do, okay, and it's just let's should this again. So if I now do kubectl get pods in the Kubeflow namespace, you most likely see a pod created, right? You see a pod tutorial data passing. So this is the name of our tag, and you see completed. So from here we can see, and also from here we see that it's completed, right? And it executed successfully. And all of the outputs can be outlined from here. You can see the outputs and you can inspect what happened in your in your DAG, or sorry, in each of those components. Right? Since I said this is just dummy, in the next class we'll do something real, right? Do something possible, something actual. Yeah, instead of running this dummy example here. So that was fast. 20 minutes or less. So that will be all for today. And I really hope you can set this up on your local and test out many of all of these things I'm showing you, and actually test out your material too, right? And it's very, very like helpful, right? This would be very nice in your resume. Create a GitHub repo that you can deploy Kubeflow pipelines, and you can do all of that, right, with proof. And yeah, so I hope I'm able to like show you how to go about this on your local. And if there are any questions, I'm open to any questions you might have.
Hi, good evening.
All right, good evening.
Okay, so I have two questions. I'm just like trying to get an hang of all this data engineering stuff, the Kubernetes and all that. So the first question is, I'm trying to run pods, and I'm getting this error, crash loop back of something like that. I don't know what could be
Yeah,
the reason for that.
there are a lot of reasons for that. One of them is your memory, right? So how much your Kubernetes cluster, how much memory is allocated to it? You have to find out that if the memory allocated to it has already been surpassed, right, by the number of pods you are creating, it will give you a crash loop back, right? And it's going to continually give you a crash loop back because there's no memory for it to create that pod. That's one, right? The second one I can say is that it depends on another pod, right? If that particular pod running depends on one pod running and that one is not running, right? So those are the two most common reasons that could be for that issue.
Okay. So I that for the
Yeah.
first one, the one of the memory, I tried to do that, like try to assign more. I think that is the CPU and the memory itself. I tried to do that, but I'll still getting that error. Maybe I'll try to
Did you assign more or did you assign less? Like, sorry for interrupting. In the manifest file, like in the YAML file, did you assign more? Or did you assign
assign
less?
more.
Because you have to ask, that's the thing. You're assigning more
Sorry,
that you don't
sorry, please,
have.
can you come back? Can you come again?
Okay. Like I said, like in the deployment file, the YAML file. Okay, let me see if I can pull up one for you. Uh, okay, let's see. Yeah, this here, this. Is this what you're assigning?
Yes, yes, that.
Okay. So you see that if you want it to run, you most likely have to assign a lesser memory and lesser CPU because this is how it's going this is the memory is going to take from you, right? This is what it's going to take from your memory. And first things first, you have to check how much memory is in your minikube cluster, then know like how much is it capable of taking more, right? So that's what I'm saying. It should be less, yeah. It should be less. You
Oh,
need to assign something here, maybe 250 M. Then, but for the pod itself, the lesser the CPU, the lesser the speed, right? So these are the trade-offs. Do you get what I'm saying?
yes, I do. Sorry, I was
Okay.
actually doing
All right.
more, not knowing I should have done this. Okay, so my second
All
question
right.
is, the part before you got to the Kubeflow UI, where you went through the VS
Yeah.
Code, you said we
I said what?
should try to add. Sorry, can you hear me? Hello,
Okay,
can
I
you
can
hear
hear you
me?
now. I can hear you
Okay,
now.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the part where you said we should try to add the remote SSH extension. So I didn't know how you got to
Yeah.
that port forwarding stuff.
Okay. I was like, first things first, you need to install remote SSH extension here. Like if you're familiar with VS Code, you know that you can install extensions
Yes.
into your VS Code here. So when you install this, then you come here, then you see something like connect to host. And then you now specify the host right there also, right? Do you understand? That's for virtual
Okay.
machine. If you are working with virtual machines, you know what virtual
Okay.
machines are. Yeah, so that's for virtual machines. But if you are not working with virtual machines, just pause forward and go to your browser. But like I said, I'm working with the virtual machine and I'm going to have to use VS Code to port forward. So because I could not connect, I could not access it. I cannot access it actually without port forwarding with VS Code. Do you understand?
Okay, sorry. For the virtual machines, if I'm right, I'm using Docker desktop. Is that an
That's a virtual
equivalent?
machine. No, no, no.
Okay.
Virtual machine is something like this: Azure, Google Cloud, AWS. Have you heard of them?
Yes, yes, I have.
Okay, so that's a virtual machine. So when you create that, so that's not a virtual machine. Those are virtual machine providers, or those are cloud providers. You now go there and create something called a virtual machine, right? In those, in like Azure Cloud, you go there and create a virtual machine, and you get access to if a computer that is in their server that you can connect to. That's just a virtual machine, right? Virtual. It's not your own, it's theirs, but you're connecting to it because you paid for it.
All right. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
All right. All right. So that'll be all. So there are no more questions. Um, good luck with the quizzes and understanding the material. Right. So yeah. Take care.